Hey guys, Carbonite here. This is my ranking of every weapon, bow, and shield in The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. A couple things before I get started. There are moderate spoilers in this video, so if you haven't played the game for yourself and don't want to be spoiled, don't watch this video. This list is purely my own opinion from my own experience playing the game, and I am by no means an expert at the game, so take my rankings with a grain or even a handful of salt. Lastly, there are a couple points in the video where my Switch capture card wasn't capturing footage correctly, so I apologize in advance for any screen tearing or other visual oddities that are present in the footage. This is my first major video on the channel, so I hope you guys enjoy it and tune in for more videos in the future whenever they happen to come out. So, with all that said, I'll let past tense me take over. Okay, so we're gonna just jump straight into this. I think first up we have the message not found Master Sword, which is a glitched item you can get from... You basically steal the Master Sword from the intro cutscene of the game, and at least I think that's what this is. Otherwise, I don't know what this Master Sword is, but I believe this is the one you steal from the intro. If you have this, this is invaluable because it is, I think... It's either 30 or 60 base damage, and it never breaks. You can fuse it to stuff, you can use it for entanglement stuff. It's great. If you're using glitches, you want this. This Decayed Master Sword is unfortunately pretty bad. As cool as it is, you can steal it, I'm pretty sure. Like, using glitches, you can keep it in your inventory, but it's 1 base damage, the lowest base damage of any weapon in the entire game, and it breaks in like 4 hits or something. It's not meant to be good, obviously. Then we have the normal Master Sword that you get just playing the game normally, and I think it's... I don't know whether to put it in okay or good, right? Because its base damage is 30, right? It's like, it's somewhere between 20 and 30. This isn't counting the powered up Master Sword or used Master Sword. These are separate on this tier list for whatever. This was made by the Tears of the Kingdom community. It was like a community voted tier list, but I'm using their template. It's base 30, and without anything fused to it, its durability is actually quite bad. In my opinion, I don't think it's very good. I would put it in okay, just because it's not awful. Like, it'll recharge, so that's nice, but it's not great. Fused is... I mean, it depends on what you fuse to it, obviously, but it'll get a lot of durability, and it does recharge, so it is a base 30 sword that you can fuse whatever you want to. I'd put it in pretty good. It really just depends on like what you're fusing to it, because obviously, you know, if you're fusing silver Lionel horns to it, it's like decent, you know. That's like 85 base damage. That's pretty good. Powered up Master Sword is pretty good. I believe it jumps to 45 when you're fighting stuff in the depths, or... No, it's just stuff in the depths. The gloom-wreathed enemies, as the game calls them. Or when fighting either Phantom Ganon or actual Ganon, it jumps to 60 and becomes unbreakable. At least with real Ganon. I don't know if it's unbreakable against Phantom Ganon, but that's neither here nor there. Regardless, it's 45 against other stuff that isn't Ganon, and it's 60 against Ganon, and that's pretty strong for a one-handed weapon. That's actually pretty good. Fused is honestly invaluable. That's 60 base damage plus anything you fuse it to. It's like... That's 60 if you take a silver Lionel horn. That's 115 base. Granted, it doesn't have any other bonuses. It does stack with like attack up and stuff like that, but it's high base damage. Like, it's good. I don't know if I'll put it in great. Powered up Master Sword is pretty fun to use. The Hylian shield is, there isn't really a whole lot to say. It's the best shield in the game for just being a shield. Like, it's, 90 base defense, which more or less guarantees a disarm on parrying enemies, most enemies in the game. It has the highest durability of pretty much any item, other than like a message not found Master Sword or something silly like that. But you use this for fusing rockets to your shield, bombs to your shield. You use this for like anything once you get it, and it's really not that hard to get. It's I would argue it's even easier to get in Tears of the Kingdom than it was in Breath of the Wild, because at least in Breath of the Wild you had to fight the Stalnox not beneath, it's just in Hyrule Castle, whereas in this game you don't even have to fight the Gloom spawn that is right next to it. You can just grab it and go if you're fast enough. So it's easier to get in this game, and it's still just as good. You can even upgrade it to 100 base defense by feeding it to a rock Octorok. So not that you need to. 90 is plenty, but it's the Hylian shield. I've never used the Goddess Sword, but I think it's probably like up here. It's one-handed. I think it's like here. Okay, so the sword is 24 base damage, which is like, it's okay. You can fuse it to stuff, and it has good durability. 24 is nothing to complain about. I just don't know if it's like pretty good. I would say it's probably okay. Like, you're not going to be upset to have it. Next we have the Hero Sword. I think that's what it's called. I don't know. I don't actually have one of these in game. I am missing a lot of the amiibo weaponry, just as a fair heads up going into the rest of these. But I'm going to assume it's probably similar. It's similar base damage, good durability. You're not going to be upset to have it, but it's not like, invaluable or great. It's okay. The Sea Breeze Boomerang is pretty cool. It has really nice durability. You can throw it like a boomerang, and that doesn't sound that great at first, but when you start thinking about fusing things to it like Gleeok horns or other elemental horns, and basically making a flaming or freezing or shocking boomerang that has really good durability and pretty good damage, especially with Gleeok horns, it's pretty good. And that actually goes for a lot of the boomerangs, in my opinion. They're actually quite good, especially if you can get pristine ones. So I would put this in pretty good. The Dusk Claymore. I don't have one of these, but I did look at it before I started this list, and I think 32 base is pretty good. It has good durability. You can fuse it with like a silver Lionel horn or whatever strongest horn you've got, and it'll be like a nice two-handed weapon. I kind of feel the same way about the other amiibo two-handed weapons, but like the Bigoron sword is, I think 30, it might just be 30 or 32 base. Really good durability, but again, there's no bonuses with these. They just have pretty good base damage and base durability, but they don't have any bonuses, which makes them like, they're nice, but they're not like that crazy, in my opinion. Next we have the Dusk Bow, and I think it's okay. It has really good range. I think it's 30 base, which is like, yeah, that's pretty good. It's a pretty big downgrade from the Twilight Bow in Breath of the Wild or the Bow of Light, but it's not bad. It's just not great, in my opinion, especially compared to other bows. The Sea Breeze Shield is probably great. Not just because it's aesthetically pleasing, but it has base 65 defense, and I think 90 durability. If you're not using the Hylian shield for whatever reason, it's probably one of the better shields you can find in the game. It's pretty good. I mean, it's not anywhere near this, but it's pretty good. That's the problem, is for the most part with some Zonai shield exceptions, or maybe Daybreaker, I don't know. Most shields fall really short of this one, and this one's not hard to get, the Hylian shield. So it makes a lot of other shields not really have much point, but this one's cool at least, and it is, for what it's worth, it is one of the better shields, not counting the Hylian shield. The magic rod, I think this is the one-handed, in my opinion, is invaluable for pretty much one reason only, and that's because of sapphire magic rods. It's the blizzard rod from Breath of the Wild, which, if you haven't played Breath of the Wild, or you just never used blizzard rods in Breath of the Wild, they are so good because it's an AoE freeze, and that doesn't, like, at first that might not sound that crazy because there's plenty of other frost weapons in the game, but this is a splash damage frost. It freezes pretty much any enemy that's even remotely close to you. So you can shatter them for 3 times damage, or just freeze them to give yourself a chance to breathe. It doesn't work on all enemies, notably boss enemies, Lynels. I think it might not work as long on silver enemies. I could be wrong about that, but it might not be quite as effective on silver enemies, but still, it does freeze them. It's not that the other elements are bad necessarily. I mean, fire is good damage, and it will stun some enemies temporarily. Shock is still really good. It'll disarm enemies that are, vulnerable to it. You can fuse opals to any of the magic weaponry, and it'll cast water balls, which is pretty much only useful during the Zora's domain part of the game with all of the sludge. It's really, I had this item we're gonna get to next, which is the magic staff, I think. It's her, I don't know if it's the two-handed magic weapon. I had one of these with an opal fused to it, and it made the Muktarok boss battle so easy, because I could just cast water balls everywhere, like with a spin attack, and it worked really well. But other than that, it's not terribly useful. But it's still useful for, like, I still stand by the sapphire magic rods are some of the best weapons in the game, and you should always have at least one in your inventory at any given time. The magic, I don't know if it's the staff or if it's, I don't know, the two-handed magic weapon. It's not as good as the just the one-handed rod or the spear, in my opinion. But it's still a magic rod, and it is, for what it's worth, it is, I believe, stronger or has a bigger area of effect, so it's still nice. The spear is pretty good. It's the same deal, it's just a spear. It does the same thing as the other magic rods, but it does have a faster attack time and better reach, so that might be useful to you. I don't know. I usually just prefer the one-handed magic rod, but none of these are bad. Next we have the Gloom weaponry, or Ganon's weaponry, whatever you prefer. Gloom sword is, I don't know if it's invaluable, because it really depends on how much HP you have, how many hearts you have, because if you have like 4 or 5 hearts, this is not going to be useful. It's really more useful when you're very late in the game and you have a lot of HP that you don't care if you lose. It's also better out in either the sky or just the surface. It's not great in the depths because you won't recover that gloom damage unless you're under a light root. Or you have gloom healing food, which is usually not worth making, in my opinion. Just because there's so many better ways to get rid of gloom that don't cost resources, but kind of it depends on where you're at. I'm going to put it in great because it does have 41 base damage, which is one of the highest one-handed base damages. So actually I just remembered its durability is kind of bad. I'm going to put it in pretty good, actually, because its durability is quite low, in my opinion, for such a... I don't know if it's incredibly difficult to obtain, but you do have to kill a Gloom Spawn and Phantom Ganon to get one. Same thing for Gloom Clubs. I don't think they're amazing. They're probably worse than Gloom Swords, in my opinion. They do have 50 base damage, which is really nice, but again, same thing. They break pretty quick. I would put Gloom Spear a little higher just because it's a spear, and in general, spears are kind of the best weapons in these games because they can have so much attack power and attack so quickly. In my opinion, spears in Breath of the Wild are not very good because their base damage was usually very poor, with some exceptions sprinkled in here and there, like Royal Halberds. But in this game, spears, even when they're unfused, generally have better attack power. At least not enough for it to be a significant downgrade from one-handed or two-handed weapons. And, of course, you can fuse stuff. So this, I think, is like... I don't know if it's somewhere between, like, high 30s, 40s base damage. Fuse any strong horn to it, and it becomes a pretty great weapon to have. Again, the only thing that holds it back is, of course, if you've got not much HP, it's not going to be that useful to you, and it doesn't have great durability. So it's like... It's still really good, though. It's got great damage. The Demon King's bow is... I don't know if it's great, or... I'm inclined to put it above these guys. I'll reorder these later. Once we're, like, done putting all the weapons. We got a lot to go. Yikes. But anyway, Demon King's bow, same thing with the rest of these gloom weapons. It really depends on how far you are in the game. Early game, these things are actually pretty bad. Like, you have to work pretty hard, especially early, to kill Gloom Spawn and Phantom Ganon, and your reward is one of these weapons and this bow. And this bow's damage increases by 2 for every heart that you have, every max heart you have. So, at minimum, it's dealing 8 damage when you're at 4 hearts at the start of the game, unless you've lost hearts due to gloom, and then it actually can get as low as 2, which is obviously really bad. That's probably the lowest damage a bow can do, I think. Yeah, I think 2 is as low as it goes, but alternative on the opposite side, if you've got 30 hearts, it's dealing 60 damage, which is, I want to say that's the highest damage for a single shot bow is 60, and I think that's correct. It's obviously not as high as multi-shot bows, but 60 base damage for a bow is really good. It's got really good range, and as an added bonus, the game doesn't tell you this, but arrows shot from the Demon's King bow, I think, fly about somewhere between 1.5 and 2 times as quickly as other arrows. You may have noticed, if you've ever used this bow, that arrows seem to hit enemies particularly fast. They don't shoot faster, but the arrows themselves fly faster, which is not, like, amazingly useful, but it's kind of cool. But again, it really just depends on what point you are in the game. They have decent durability as far as I can tell, and good damage if you've got a lot of HP. I don't know if it counts temporary hearts. If it does, that kind of helps its case, but not a whole lot because temporary hearts are pretty easily lost. All right, we're moving on to Zonai weaponry. The regular one-handed Zonai sword is not great. It's like 5 base damage, and its ability, if it worked the other way around, so the way the way its like condition works is that if Zonai devices or parts are fused to it, it doubles the base damage of the sword, but not the thing you fuse to it. If it was the other way around, they would actually be a lot better, in my opinion, but that's not how they work. So in reality, the most you're going to get out of this with its condition is an extra like 5 damage. They're not great, but they are at the start of the game, and early game, you won't be upset to have these because they are immune to lightning and burning, and they're just kind of cool. But once you get a little ways into the game, they're not great. Strong Zonite sword or Zonai sword is like, I think it's 10 base. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head for some of these, but I'm gonna say it's kind of similar position. It's not amazing, but it's okay. The mighty Zonite sword, I would actually put into, I'd probably put it into okay. It does have like 20 base damage, I think, or it might just be 10. I don't know. It might be that this is like 10, 7, and then, or 5, 7, and then 10. Something like that. I don't really know. It does, I know it has pretty decent base damage for a one-handed weapon. And if you fuse this with like a Captain Construct or 4 Horn or Soldier Construct 4 Horn, they are pretty good. They have pretty nice damage, so I'll put it in okay. I think this is the two-handed. Two-handed is, it's not that great. Same thing here. Pretty low base damage, but it is immune to shock and they're like lightning and burning. Same thing for this. I don't think it's very good. I'll probably put it above this, but I'm not even sure I want to put the mighty one into okay, because honestly, for two-handed weapons to be really good, they need to have really high base damage or really high fuse damage, and these guys don't. I don't think they're that strong. By the time you're getting mighty longswords, mighty Zonai longswords, you probably have access to like pristine Knights Claymores or pristine Royal Guards Claymores, and if I'm being honest, you're always going to want these over that, even though they're metal and they could get you zapped. You're always going to want these instead. So I'm going to put them down here. I would probably put the regular Zonai spear above the other base Zonai weapons just because it's a spear. Same thing for the might, or the strong, and I would put it above them. I would just put all of these above. It's kind of the same rationale, but spears are a little bit better than the other two weapon classes in general, in my opinion, so I'll put it above there. For me, the way I see it is spears are really good because they have reach and they attack really fast. They do force you to give up your shield, which is something that I think one-handed weapons are really nice for, even if they don't have the greatest damage. You can have your shield out while you're using them, and that will save you from getting whacked a couple times. Or it'll just help with parrying since you can have your shield out at all times. But spears have like probably the highest DPS of any of these weapons. One-handed is nice for the reason I just said, and they do attack decently quickly. Two-handed is nice because it has usually the highest base damage out of any of these, and spin attacks are still pretty good, even though they were nerfed from Breath of the Wild. They're still pretty strong, and they have good damage, but they're slow to attack, and they force you to give up your shield. Okay, Zonai Bow. The base one is not great. I would still probably take it over any of these weapons just because it's a bow and bullet time is so greatly improved in Tears of the Kingdom compared to Breath of the Wild, because it consumes stamina per shot, not over time, which makes it a lot better in a lot of ways. Strong Zonai Bow, same thing. I'd put it above any of these weapons just because it's a bow. I think this is like 24 base damage, but it can get modifiers like quick shot or damage up. But it's nice. It can't burn, won't get you struck by lightning. The Zonite Bow is distinctly distinctly different from the rest of these Zonai bows, because it actually has an ability where if you charge it, it consumes Zonai battery. It consumes your battery cells in exchange for it shoots really far. So if you let this charge really far, it has the highest range of any bow in the game, I believe. I don't think there's anything that has better range when it's charged up. And I wouldn't call it... It has 30 base damage, which is pretty good. Getting modifiers on it is pretty tough, just because there's only a few you can find in chests, and while you can buy them for, I think it's like 50 or 60 Zonite, in order to get modifiers on it, you'd need to feed it to a rock Octorok, and that's kind of not worth it, but it's still 30 base if nothing else, and I don't know if I'd put it above the Dusk Bow, or I'd probably put it above. It has the same damage and generally the same range, and is slightly more useful because of its charge. The Zonai shields, I would put this into not great. I don't think any shield belongs in pretty bad, because shields, I mean, you're always gonna want at least one. And while I don't think many other shields belong in invaluable, unless, here, let me look down the list. Yeah, not really. Not really, but some of these will go into great, like the Seabreeze shield. This is like, the only reason that this is like kind of useful is because you can fuse Zonai devices to it, and it'll decrease how much battery they use. It might also increase how long they last, but I think it might just be battery. They're like okay. But the mighty Zonai shield honestly belongs in probably, I'm gonna say top of pretty good. Maybe below the fused Master Sword and below this. Yeah, I'd put it below all this stuff, but it's pretty good just because it has really, actually, yeah, I will up these I don't know if I'll up them a tier, but I'll probably put them like higher, because they have really low like shield surf traction, so they are great for shield surfing. But mighty Zonite shields have some of the highest defense and durability of any shield, aside from the Hylian shield. And they're pretty easy to come across once you're later in the game. I have an inventory almost full of them, just because I like to fuse stuff to them, and they generally don't break too quickly. They're pretty nice. They're generally pretty nice to have. Not as good as these, but like, they're pretty okay. Wooden sticks, they're just kind of bad. They're better than this, I guess, but they're not great. They're not meant to be great. I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about them. They're better than tree branches, but not by much. This is, I think, the two-handed tree branch. It's, I don't know. It's okay. It's not amazing. This guy, I would put this in not like the bot, like, I don't know, it's probably better than this stuff. These can have really high attack power, and they have the added bonus of not being struck by lightning. They're okay. I mean, they're not okay. They're not great, but they're not outright bad in my opinion. You could use this to make like a hammer or just a trusty weapon that won't get you struck by lightning if that's something you need. This is pretty bad. Pretty bad. Most of these are gonna be not great. I would probably put this at the top of pretty bad, I guess. It has high attack power, but it's, well, I'd probably put it into not great. Probably at the bottom, though. I don't like it as much as the one-handed. I do prefer the spears just because of the reach they give you early on. I'll put this above that. Again, these like gnarled tree branches or whatever have higher attack power. These other, like, I don't know if it's like, I think they're sturdy. I think they're sturdy tree branches have good durability, and I think they're slightly higher attack than the regular, but they're still kind of whatever. The regular Boko bow, probably bottom of not great. I'm really hesitant about putting any bows into pretty bad because bullet time is amazing and any bow can use it. So even though this is not good for a bow, it's still better. I would still rather have it than most of these. The spiked one is, I mean, it's better than this. I'd probably put it above this. The dragon bone one is actually legitimately useful. It's like 24 base damage. It's the same as this, although it can burn, so I would put it a little lower. The Boko shield is like, it's 3 base defense, it burns, it has pretty bad durability, not great traction. It's probably the worst shield. Is it? Well, is it? I don't know. These are all like kind of the same. I don't know. It's not great. I wouldn't put it into bad because if it's like the start of the game and you have no shields, you'll still take it and be happy that you have something, but spiked, I guess I'd put it above this. Yeah, it's fine. Dragon bone is probably right below this. It's like 25 defense, which is a lot higher than this, but it also burns, and I don't think the durability is as good. Lazal boomerang, which this picture makes it look like it's not decayed, and maybe it isn't, but I was really under the impression that they were. I guess it doesn't really matter. I would probably put this above, probably above these Zonai weapons, because it is a boomerang. You can fuse some elemental thing to it and have like a frost boomerang as like a ranged melee weapon, which is pretty good in my opinion. You could do a lot with this, whereas with these you're kind of not gonna do a whole lot. Actually no, I would put it below because its durability is not great and it has pretty poor damage without fuse. Is it worse than it's a lot worse than this, actually. It's not very good. I really like the boomerang, so I'm a little bit partial, but it's not that great if I'm being honest. The Lazal bow, I'd probably put it above the boomerang because it's a bow and it has like 14 base damage. I don't know. I don't remember exactly. Honestly, I've essentially never seen the Lazal bows I've used them a ton in Breath of the Wild, but I almost never find them in Tears of the Kingdom. I still remember that they're like, it's better than that, I would say. And then this is like something like this. I don't know. Unless they changed it, this is like 36 base power. We'll check her. Lazal shields, I would put it for a shield. I would probably put it above I'd put it above this because it's made of metal, so it can get you struck by lightning, but it won't burn, and it has a higher, I don't know, I don't know how I want to order this, but it's somewhere in here. I mean, it's like 8 defense or something. It's not great, but it won't burn at least. This is probably, compared to these two, it's a lot worse. It's better than this though, I think. This is okay. I don't know if it's even okay. I'd put it like here. Oh, no, I wouldn't. I'd rather, I don't know. I'll put it like here. It has high defense and it's decently durable, but it's not great. The Lionel bow, base Lionel bow, is, I feel like it's got to be at least okay. It's 10 times 3. It's a 3-shot bow. Each deals 10 damage. Early game, you'll be pretty happy to have one of these. It's 10 base damage times 3. You can use bullet time with it, fuse stuff for really high damage with your arrows, and it's multi-shot. It's probably one of the first multi-shot bows you'll find. Well, I don't know about that, but regardless, it's like okay. The mighty one, I don't know exactly how much it deals, but I think it's more than this. So I would probably put it above these. Probably not base Master Sword, just because I don't think it belongs that high, but mighty Lionel bows are pretty good, I think. I think it's like 20 times 3 or 18 times 3, something like that. They're pretty good. Savage Lionel bows are probably invaluable. I don't know if I want to put them above the... Yeah, probably. I'd probably put it like here. I would actually move this down, because this is only accessible in a very few select places. This is actually probably at the top for now, just because it is a 30. I need to hang. It's a 30 power infinite durability Master Sword. So that's pretty good. So I'd probably put it up here just purely for the fact that it's unbreakable. That's so useful. If all your other weapons break somehow, you've got this. Granted, you do have to glitch to get it, but that's kind of whatever. Lionel shield. Oh, I didn't talk enough about the Savage Lionel bow. Savage Lionel bow is 32 times 3. And that's just the regular one. Usually, if you're finding these, they have modifiers because you got it from a silver Lionel or some other Lionel that's scaled. Quick shot, attack up, durability plus, 5-shot burst. That takes it from 32 times 5 or 3 to 32 times 5, which is 160 damage without fusing stuff. I think it might be the absolute best or second best bow in the entire game. You could probably guess what the other one I might think is slightly better is, but I'm not entirely sure. These are really good. Really great damage. There's a reason people have entire inventories full of them, myself included. The Lionel Shield. I would put it like here, probably. I don't know. Actually, no. They're like 10 defense, and while the like slicing thing sounds cool, in practice it just makes them break faster because you end up cutting stuff with it when you just want to parry. The Mighty Lionel Shield is, I think it's like 30-40 defense. It's better than this, but I don't think I'd probably put it above the bow, because it is like a good shield. It is quite nice and durable. The only thing is it loses durability because it cuts stuff. The Savage Lionel Shield does have some of the best stats in terms of defense, and once you get to how like its shield power, it actually does do pretty good damage, especially if you fuse some other horn to it. But it isn't terribly durable, and it isn't great for shield surfing, so I'd probably put it below the Mighty Zonite Shield, but it is in pretty good. It's a nice shield to have. You should have at least one of them if you're pretty late into the game. These bone weapons I'm gonna put into bad, just because they have nice damage, but their durability is so bad that it basically doesn't matter. Regular Traveler Sword is also gonna be pretty bad. I think it's like 3 or 4 or maybe 5 base damage. It's not good, and it breaks pretty quick. I guess I'd put it above these, but it's not great. The base Traveler's Sword I think is 10, or the pristine one is 10, and it usually has some kind of modifier with it since you're finding it underground in the depths. I would put it... They don't have any modifiers though, and their durability still isn't like amazing. When I say modifiers, I mean like it doesn't like double its damage when you're fighting some enemy or have some other condition. I'd probably put it above all this stuff, because it does have decent damage if you find it early. Decayed Soldier's Broadsword is probably better than all of these, but not better than this spear. The rapid charge attacks is pretty cool, but the spin attack isn't the best one for that. The spin attack isn't the best charge attack to have be really fast. It is nice, but it's not that great. Pristine is kind of nice. It's like 14 base damage. Pristine, and it's not bad. I'd probably put it... I'd put it like here, I think. Yeah, that seems fair. Or, I don't know. Yeah, I'd probably put it like here. The Soldier's Broadsword, Decayed, is probably in like... I don't know if it's better than these. It's probably... It depends, right? Because this is like 10 or something base damage Decayed, but all of the Knight's equipment, their condition is when you're at 1 heart or less, your damage is doubled with the weapon. So that includes the sword's base damage and whatever you've got fused to it. So like, let's say you've got a Decayed Knight's Broadsword with attack up +10 and a Silver Lionel Horn. That's like 70 base damage times 2. That's like 140 base damage. That's really good. For a one-handed weapon, that's probably one of the higher damages you'll ever see. It's the only problem, right, is of course you're at 1 HP, which if you're really good at not getting hit, that's great. You can work with that. You can make that work. If you are not good at not getting hit, or you have bad armor that won't protect you if you do get hit, you probably won't be using these very much, and you probably won't like them because otherwise they're not that great. The pristine one is even better. I would probably put it into... I don't know if it's better than these. It's great. Actually, yeah, I would put it higher than that. It's great. It's a really good weapon. It's even better. It's like 20 something base damage or something like that. Really nice. The decayed royal broadsword is... I would rather have one of these than an unfused base master sword, purely because any of these, or especially the pristine one fused with a silver Lionel horn or any strong fuse item with high attack, completely breaks Flurry Rush. It makes Flurry Rush the only real option for combat, and Flurry Rush is not hard to get, in my opinion. It's really easy to time for most attacks. So you can take this. I think it has like okay base damage decayed, but you could get an attack up 1 and fuse it with some really strong monster horn, and you know, during Flurry Rushes that damage is doubled. So I think you get 7 or 8 attacks during a Flurry Rush with a sword, like a one-handed weapon. So it makes Flurry Rush really, really strong. A pristine royal broadsword is honestly, I don't know if it's invaluable. I have a lot of them. I use them all the time. I'd probably put it, for now, top of great. They are really strong, especially when fused with strong items. And again, they pretty much make the game only about flurry rushing, which is like not a super fun way to play, but it is very strong. It is a good like way to just absolutely delete enemies. Now we're at the Royal Guards broadsword. I think it's probably like... I don't know how to feel about it, right? Because the damage is like pretty good, especially if you've got something strong fused to it. But it's only at its strongest right before it breaks, and in my opinion, that's not terribly useful most of the time. It could be nice for finishing off a really strong enemy. Like once it's pretty low and you know you can take it down, hit it a few times with your almost broken Royal Guard weapon. But I don't think it's great. I would honestly put it below the Knight's Broadsword, because you were probably, if you're that late in the game, you're probably using this more than you are this, in my honest opinion. The pristine one is... I'd probably put it like here. It's still like pretty good. It has really nice base damage. It will do a lot of damage. It's just gonna break quickly, and once it does break, it's gonna hurt really, really bad for enemies. But pristine ones are really hard to come across in my experience, and they break too quickly for it to be worth it. Decayed Traveler's Claymore. It's just this is a hammer weapon. You find these when you're breaking rocks, and they're good for making hammers, and that's about it. Nothing really to say about that. Otherwise they're pretty bad. Pristine ones are okay. I'd probably put it above this, but they're still not good. It's nice for making hammers again. In an early game, you won't be upset to find these in the depths, but anything past really early game and you're gonna get frustrated finding these. The Decayed Soldiers Claymore is like, it's better than these. It's better than these, but I would honestly kind of rather have, well, that's not true. I'd rather have this over these like 2 damage spears, but I'd still rather have either of these over a Decayed one. The thing is, soldier equipment has like the fast charge attack like wind up, but it doesn't work with the spin attack for the 2-handed weapons. So I'd rather have it than like, honestly, I would rather have either of these over this. It has good base damage, but these are easier to use and don't deal that much less damage. Now, the Knight's Claymores, the Decayed one, I would put into like, I'd put it above, yeah, I'd put it above the Decayed Royal Guard's sword. Same thing as the Knight's Broadsword. It doubles damage when you're at 1 heart or less. And, you know, when you fuse something strong to it, that's really good. Same thing up here. Pristine ones are really nice. If you... Honestly, for the most part, I would rather have one of these versus the Royal Guard's Claymore, even though... I'll get to that when I get to it, but I'll explain why I would actually kind of rather have one of these compared to a pristine Royal Guard's Claymore. Royal Claymore, just the Royal Claymore, not Royal Guards, is pretty strong. It's pretty strong. I'd rather have a broadsword in general, but they're still really strong for flurry rushing, which is pretty easy to do. The pristine one is, again, I'd put it right under the broadsword. I'd rather have the broadsword most of the time, but it's still really good and has really strong attack. Even without flurry rushing, it has high enough base power that it doesn't necessarily need it, but you should be flurry rushing if you're using these weapons. The Royal Guard's Claymore. Now, I think this is actually quite a bit more useful than the Decayed Royal Guards broadsword, and that's because I think the best use for the Royal Guard weaponry is Lionel hunting. And the idea is to almost break it, so get it down to where it says your such and such is about to break, or is badly damaged, or whatever it says. I don't really care. And have it fused to something really strong, like Lionel horns or whatever you've got that's the strongest. And only use that weapon from that point on when you're on a Lionel's back, because when you're on a Lionel's back attacking it, when you're, you know, riding it, it doesn't use weapon durability. I think more and more people are aware of this, but in case you weren't, it doesn't use... riding a Lionel's back and attacking doesn't use durability. So you're free to use whatever your strongest weapon is, and it's not going to take any hit to its durability. So you can take one of these and fuse whatever you've got that's the strongest to it, and that's your new Lionel killing weapon once it's almost broken. The Royal Guards, the pristine one is even better. I would put, I'd put it like probably up here. It is worth pointing out that when it's almost broken, these have the highest base attack of any weapon, pretty much. The only thing is the knight, like pristine knight claymores, are not that much far off, and the difference is you don't have to almost break them for it to be useful. You just have to be at 1 heart. And I think in general that's more useful than this, but for killing Lionels and just farming them for parts, you want one of these in your inventory at any given time. if you can find them. Finding them can really suck though. They're pretty rare in the depths. And of course you have to have, well, I say of course, it's not super obvious, but in case you aren't aware with how weapon spawning in the depths works, you need to have broken a decayed one before they'll start spawning pristine ones in the depths. So if you haven't broken any of these decayed ones yet, you won't start finding pristine ones in the depths. I think I learned that from Austin John Plays, so I will probably link his video to how depths weapon spawning works, just because it's a really good video to help understanding how all that works, since the game really doesn't do anything to explain how it works, and I think it's something you should understand, just because pristine weapons are so much better than decayed ones by like a lot. But that's okay. Now we're getting to the really good stuff. We're getting to spears. Spears are really, really good. However, these spears are not that good. I'd put the decayed traveler spear above these because it has slightly higher damage, and that's about it. The pristine one, I'd put it above the pristine claymore. It's generally a lot more useful. Wait, where did I really put it up here? That's kind of rude on my part to put it all the way up there. I put it like up here. It's better than the knights, or not the knights, the traveler's broadsword, just because it's a spear. Decayed soldier spear, I'd put it above the sword, but not really any higher than that. I put the soldier spear probably above this stuff. The pristine one's decent, and I think out of all of the soldiers' equipment, it benefits the most from the reduced time to charge up the charge attack, the rapid fire pokies. The knight's halberd, whatever, it's the knight's spear, is honestly, I don't know if it's better than these bows. I don't know. I'll reckon with that later, but it's the best of the knight's weapons for just attacking, because its base damage isn't that much lower than the rest of them, and it still benefits from the desperate strength modifier. Same thing goes for the pristine one. I'd put it up here. It's really strong. It's pretty easy to underestimate them, but if you're willing to intentionally drop to 1 heart and fuse something really strong to them, they will do big time work for you. You will not be upset with them. The Royal Halberd is honestly great. I think it's generally more useful than... I would put it in even a tier, even if it's at the bottom, I'd put it a tier above the other ones, because spears definitely benefit the most from flurry rushing. They get so many attacks during a flurry rush, and if they're all doubled, as is the case with royal weaponry, that's great. The pristine one, I actually would put at the bottom of invaluable. 166 damage from a flurry rush. That is some of the highest damage or highest DPS you will ever see in the entire game, like bar none. It is really strong. If you can find one of these, you will want to hang on to it. It is really, really good. The Royal Guard spear is honestly, I'd put it below the rest of them because it breaks so fast. It has really good damage, but it breaks so fast. I guess I would... I'd probably put it above the broadsword, but it breaks so fast. And you don't see the benefits until it's about to break, and by then it's gonna break super quick. The pristine one, I would put like... where did I put the... I'd put it like... I guess here, but they break so fast. They have really great base damage, but they just break too quickly. And they're so hard to find. Pristine ones are so difficult to find. At least for me. I know you can reload and farm them, but I don't like doing that because it takes forever. Uh, the travelers. Now we're getting to bows and other kinds of weaponry. And then we'll get to regional weaponry, which will be a lot more interesting. The traveler's bow is, I mean, it's better than a boko bow, but that's not real. It's not saying a whole lot. It's like 5 base damage. It's 1 point higher than a boko bow. It's not really that much easier or harder to find. It's slightly better. Not really anything else to say about it. The soldier's bow is, it's like right on par with the strengthened Lazal bow. I'd probably put it higher just because it's easier to find. Lazal bows, I think, are generally, at least in my experience, not easy to find. So you'll probably be using these a lot more, and they're basically as good. The knight's bow is, I think, 26 base power, which is better than this, and it's made of metal, so it won't burn. But it's a good bow. It doesn't have anything special about it really, but it is pretty nice base damage, and it is slightly stronger than the mighty Zonai bow. The royal bow is, it's 38 base, and I think it's actually really good. I would take one of these over any of the gloom weapons except for the spear. I would rather have a Demon King bow, but these are really nice. They're really, really good. The Royal Guard's bow, it's, honestly, I only know of one place where you can actually find one, and that's in the Hyrule Castle Sanctum. I don't know where else to find these. I should probably figure out if there is somewhere else to find them. It has 50 base power and has really quick draw speed, but it does break pretty quickly. You can repair it with a Rock Octorok if you want and get some modifiers on it, but I don't know if that's really worth it. I think it's slightly better than a royal bow, but it's also a little harder to make good use of it. They're both really good though. I all 3 of these, I usually have at least one of these in my inventory at any given time. They're all pretty solid. Except for, I would actually put this below the other 2 just because these are always going to deal 38 and 50 respectively. This is entirely dependent on how far you are in the game. Traveler Shield, it's slightly better than a Boko Shield. And that's it. It's not better than anything else here. Soldier's Shield is better than, I think, these. I'd put it below this because this can still burn. The Knight's Shield is legitimately like a good shield. I'd put it like here. The Royal Shield is genuinely quite nice, and it has some of the higher defense and durability you'll see out of any shield in the game. The Royal Guard shield is like, I would honestly put it in not great because it has really high defense, but it has pretty bad durability, and for the most part shield power doesn't really matter. It's usually shield durability that matters, and this shield's durability is quite bad. I'd still put it over this just because it is strong. You will disarm enemies a lot of the time with this, but other than that, it's not that useful. Rusty Broadsword is... it's just not good. It just breaks too quickly. Same thing for this, and same thing for this. I guess I'd rather have a spear than a broadsword, but it's not good. The Rusty Shield is, again, it's better than a Boko Shield, but that's it. The Decayed Feathered Edge, it's just not good. I think the Rito weapons have, like, increased throwing distance, but any of the Rito melee weapons are just bad. They're just not very good. It's like, Imagine you find one of these with long throw, and it's like, yo dog, we heard you like long throw, so we put a long throw in your long throw. They're just not good. I would probably take it over, like, I'd take it over either of these, but, well, I don't know. I'd probably take it over this too, but it's not that great. Pristine, it's a little better, but not really by much. I guess I'd rather have it than that, but I would actually probably take this spear over that. It's not that great. The decayed one is, I guess I'd rather have it over the sword. Again, they're not awesome. Now, here's what the Rita weaponry does right. The swallow bow is, if you find it early, it's actually really great. It has fast draw speed. It has like 8 base power, which isn't amazing, but it's still better than this. And honestly, just because it has faster draw speed, I will put it over the spiked Boko bow, even though it has higher base damage. The falcon bow, now I don't think I've ever found a falcon bow in Tears of the Kingdom, but I do know how they work in Breath of the Wild, and they are, I think they have, I don't know what their base damage is. I would definitely take it. I would honestly take it over the mighty Zonai bow, just because its handling is so much better. I wouldn't take it over a knight's bow just because it has significantly higher base power, but it's still pretty good. The Great Eagle bow is probably the second best bow in the game. It may even be better than a Savage Lionel bow, but just because it can't get modifiers, I would put Savage slightly higher. The Great Eagle bow is 28 base power times 3, so it's a 3-shot bow, and it has one of the fastest draw speeds of any bow. I think it's maybe tied with the Royal Guard's bow, or about the same, or slightly better or lower. I don't know. It's got fast draw speed. It's 28 base power. It feels so good to use this bow. Like, straight up, it's just a fun bow to use, and it's got great damage. The only thing that's not great about it is it's a champion weapon, so you can't repair it with a Rock Octorok using conventional means. You have to fuse it to something and then unfuse it using the Terrytown diffuser shop or whatever. I don't know what his name is. And it's pretty expensive up front. It costs diamonds, a swallow bow, and some wood and flint, I think, to have Teba craft it for you. But it is worth it. Just don't let it break. Just as a quick PSA, for those of you who like to use champion weapons, if you want to repair them without buying a new one from their respective, like, village elder or whoever, find a weapon that doesn't have anything fused to it, fuse your champion item to it, feed that item to a Rock Octorok, and then have it unfused in Terrytown. You'll get the champion weapon back at full durability without having to spend a bunch of diamonds on a new one. I would highly recommend that you do that, because otherwise these will get expensive pretty fast, especially if you're using them a lot. But if you're doing that, it's great. They're so much fun to use. They're all generally pretty good. The kite shield is kind of just like, I think it's, I don't know, it's somewhere in here. It's not like amazing. It's just a shield. It's not really special, I don't think. The Cobble Crusher. The Decayed Cobble Crusher is, I mean, it's a hammer. You use it to make a hammer. It's not really good for anything else. Granted, for that purpose, it is pretty good, and it does have decent base damage for like a two-handed weapon. So I don't think it's bad. I just don't think it's like great. I'd probably put it like, I don't know, here. Probably like here. The pristine one is actually legitimately quite good. It has pretty great base damage, and it makes for a really nice durable hammer. I would probably put it like, I'd probably put it like up here, maybe. Or yeah, I'd put it like here. That's actually okay. The boulder breaker is, in my opinion, the worst of the champion weapons. It's like 38, it's like 36, 38 base damage, but that's really good. But it doesn't have any other special conditions. It's great for breaking rocks, but that's about it. Where did I put the... Okay, now that I'm looking at it, these weapons probably belong more like down here or at the bottom of this. I'd rather have a lot of these than any of these amiibo weapons. I'd probably put this at the top of these because it is it's not terribly hard to get. Well, actually no, it is probably not. It's probably the worst of these. It's expensive, it costs diamonds, and it's pretty much only good for breaking rocks. It's okay, but it's not amazing. Even though I put it into pretty good. I really don't like it in pretty good. I'd put it here. The Zora Decayed Sword is... Water Warrior is really good. Being able to double your weapon's damage just by being wet, that's amazing. You can take one of these and fuse something like a Lionel Horn to it, and just hit yourself with Choo Choo Jelly or a Splash Fruit, and you're dealing double damage. That's really easy to work with. I would put the Decayed one probably like... I don't know if it's... Honestly, no, it probably is better than... I'd put it like here, honestly. I don't know about the Decayed one. I'd put it like here. This is a lot easier to work with than being at 1 heart. Being at 1 heart, like even if you're good and have great armor, that's not great in the depths because you'll get one shot even by a Gloom Pebble. Or no, you won't. That's not how Gloom works. Whatever, you'll get hit and it won't feel good. But with this, you just have to be wet. You just have to be splashed. That's pretty easy to work with. The pristine one, I would actually put the pristine one into maybe not invaluable, but is it better than these? No, I don't think it's better than these, but it's like it's right there with them. I think this needs to be knocked down to like probably here. And then this can be like here. I think that makes more sense. This is pretty good. I'm actually gonna move this up. Even though it's two-handed and it's slower, it's still a magic rod. Like, it's still a magic weapon. You'd probably want this if you could get it. In general. I'm also gonna move this up because when you are using it, it is better. The silver longsword is the weakest of the Zora weapons, and honestly I would rather use, like, I'd put it above, I don't know, would I put it above that? I don't think I would. I'd put it like here. It's still good when you, like, if you've got nothing else, it's still good, and it can be really strong with like a spin attack, but otherwise it's kind of whatever. The pristine one, I'd put it like like here. It's good. It has really nice damage when you're wet, but it's not as good as this, for example. The spear is really, really strong. Like, significantly stronger, just because it attacks so much faster. I would put the spear, like, here, probably. Water Warrior is so good. The pristine one, honestly, probably belongs... I think it belongs, like, here. This is so strong. It's not as strong as this, which is the light scale trident. Is it better or worse than this? It's honestly probably a little better. Light scale trident has, I think, 22 base damage. And if you fuse, you know, Lionel Horn or some other boss enemy horn to it, it still works with Water Warrior, so that's, you're doubling the damage. Let's say you take a silver Lionel Horn. That's 22 plus 55, that's 77 times 2, 154 damage with a spear. That's not even with attack up. Like, attack up food or armor. This, you should have, this is probably one of the best champion weapons. I mean, they're all really good, but it's pretty hard to pass up on. Pretty much the exact opposite end of the spectrum. If this bow still works the way it does as it did in Breath of the Wild, it's like the worst bow. It has better base damage than either of these, but it has the slowest draw speed, which makes it really not fun to use. I don't think it's good at all. Plus, they're very rare in my experience. I haven't even seen one of these. The Zora shield is like, it's fine. I'd put it like, here. I'd put it like here. It's not, it's like about here. Gerudo weaponry. The decayed Gerudo sword is kind of, I don't want to put it in pretty bad because it can do a lot of damage. It just breaks really fast. I'd put it like, I'd put it like here. Gerudo weapons double the damage of the fused item, but they don't get as much durability from fusing, so you get ×2 to your fused damage, but only +5 durability instead of like +20. It might be more than that. I don't know. So this is like a one-handed item. This can be pretty good. The pristine one, I would say, is actually quite good. I'd probably put it like, I'd put it like, I don't know. I'd put it like, probably here. Well, no, honestly, if I'm being honest, with Fuse, it is better than these. Because you could fuse like a Lionel Horn to this and have it deal like over 100 damage if you wanted. Scimitar of the Seven is pretty invaluable. I don't think it's as good as these spears, but you can get like 130 base damage with this thing, and it has pretty great durability, even though you don't get as much for fusing. It's probably the strongest one-handed weapon in the game. In terms of damage output, it's pretty good. All things considered, it's pretty good. The Gerudo Claymore Decayed is like, it has really good base damage, but it breaks pretty quick, and it is two-handed, which makes it not like amazing. I'd put it like right here. The pristine one, I'd put like Where did I put the other one? I'd put it like here. The spear actually benefits a lot more from having such high fuse damage, so I'd put it more like here. Yeah, I'd put it like here, and then the pristine one I'd put right here. The pristine one's pretty good. The Gerudo bow, there's like the golden bow or whatever. I'd put it here. It has higher base damage than this. Actually, we would put it lower than that. But honestly, the zoom is less helpful than it is annoying. Just the zoom in is not really great to work with, in my experience. And I think a lot of people agree with that, but if you like it, that's fine. The Gerudo shield is honestly one of the nicer shields. It has really low shield surf traction and pretty good durability. It's a pretty good shield. I'd put it here. The Radiant shield is a really nice shield. It has, I think, one of the lowest out of any, like, lowest shield surf traction, and it has really good base defense. I'd put it like here. Durability is also great. Daybreaker is even better. It's better. It's a better version of the Radiant shield. I'd put it like, I'd probably put it here. It's good. It's a good shield. The Decayed Eightfold Blade, it's like 6 base damage, and it has stronger sneak attacks. I mean, they're okay. I'd probably rather have it than the Rito weapons, but that's about as high as it'll go. And in my experience, the increased sneak strike damage is overkill for most enemies. Basic, or I guess regular sneak strikes usually are good enough. And if they're not, it doesn't matter because they ragdoll after and you can just smack them a couple times and be done. For what it's worth though, the pristine one is like legitimately pretty good. If you really want that to be like your build, you're just sneaking around and sneak striking stuff. If you fuse something strong to it, I'm sure it's great. It's probably like... it's probably like here. That seems appropriate. Eightfold Longblade Decayed is honestly less useful. It doesn't have the sneak strike bonus. It has the wind cleaver, like wind strike thing, like the little like beam of air that comes out when you do sword swipes. But what's interesting about these is that you can fuse elemental horns to them, and the little air swipe that you do will be elementally charged. So you can fuse like frost horns to it and have it freeze stuff that it swipes with its like air blast. So that's pretty cool, but not generally that useful. But for what it's worth, the pristine one's probably like, I'd put it like here. It's cool, and if you can manage to find one and fuse like a frost Gleeok horn to it, it's a pretty good weapon. It's not awful. I think this is the Phrenic bow, which is like it's a zoom in bow, just like the golden bow. And honestly, I'd rather have the golden bow. They're not really that different though. The duplex bow. Duplex bow is 14 times 2. And it is probably going like right here. This is like 20. I would actually rather have it than either of those. It's actually like, it does break kind of quickly, unfortunately, but it is a pretty good bow for the most part. Depending on when you get it, it can be pretty nice. Shield of the Mind's Eye or whatever it is. It's the Sheikah shield. It's just okay for a shield. But okay shields are like here, not great shields are down here, and it probably belongs like here. It's not that great. The Earthquake spell it's honestly, it's gotta go into pretty bad. It's not very useful. It's great for picking off like really weak enemies that you don't want to waste weapon durability on, but honestly, by the time you get this thing, you're probably wealthy enough to where it doesn't matter. I would put it like... It's so sad because it's so cool, but it's... Realistically, it's like not any better than like here. It's pretty not good. It's pretty bad. Now we're down to like mostly not great stuff, but the Forest Dweller's sword decayed. Forest Dweller stuff has its bonus is that bursting items are not consumed on use. So like Choo Choo Jelly is not consumed on use when you fuse it to this. It'll recharge, and that's kind of cool. But honestly, with the broadsword, it's not as useful as it could be. It has decent base damage, so I'd probably put it like here, but it's not amazing. The pristine one is a little better, and it has decent base damage, so I'd put it like here. It's okay. The spear is a lot better. Even decayed, it's legitimately not a bad option. I mean, you could fuse things like Choo Choo Jelly, maybe not gemstones because that just makes a magic wand, but anything else that bursts on a hit you can use. I'd probably put it like here. The thing, I don't think it's terribly useful to have that stuff. It's usually fine to just let it burst and not use it again. But it can be cool with stuff like beehives, or if you just don't have gemstones or any other horn for whatever reason, you can use Choo Choo Jelly or something. It's probably like here, I guess. It's not great. I don't think they're terribly great. The bow, on the other hand, is pretty good. I think it's also 10 times 3. It's like, it's a 3-shot 10 to 20 damage bow. I'd probably put it like right here. It's okay. It looks great. All the Forest Dweller stuff looks great, but it's not like amazing. The shield is like here. It's okay. Actually, I'd probably put it more like here. It's perfectly fine. It looks great, but it's not amazing. Tree branch is just bad. It's your first. It's, other than the decayed master sword, it's probably your first weapons. They're fine. They're not great. Torches as a weapon are not good either, but they are useful utility wise, so I would actually put them higher than the bone weapons, but other than that, they're not useful. Soup ladle it's basically a wooden stick. I guess I'll put it higher because it's funnier, but other than that, it's not very good. Decayed boomerang is pretty bad compared to any other boomerang, but I'd put it like here. It's slightly worse than a Lazal boomerang, but not by much. The pristine boomerang is like, it's okay. It's cool. I'd put it... Where's the... Sea breeze is like up here. I don't think it's actually that good, but it's okay. I'll leave it. It's fine. The regular one's probably more like... Probably here. It's bottom of okay. Farmer's hoe is like... It's like 6 damage spear. It's okay, I guess. I guess I'd put it above the rusty weapons, but it's not really much. I'd put it like here. It's better than that. The boat or whatever it is it's basically just a thick stick. It's funnier, I guess. The giant decayed boomerang is, as far as a boomerang is concerned, it's better than these. As a weapon, it's slightly worse, but the pristine giant boomerang is actually a decent two-handed weapon, and if you fuse something elemental to it, it actually is a decent ranged weapon. So I guess it's slightly better than this, but it's not really that great. The mop is, it's like a 3 or 4 damage spear. I don't know why these are so much higher than these. They're really not that much better. But I guess this is slightly better. The pitchfork actually has decent damage, so I'd put it probably like here. The fisherman's spear, I haven't even seen one of these in game. Granted, I'm not looking for them because I know they're not very good. I guess I'd put it like here. Actually, I don't even know about that. Yeah, I'd probably put it like here. The throwing spear is, again, yo dog, we heard you like long throw, so we put a long throw inside your long throw. It's just not good. The pristine one is like, I guess a little bit better, but I just don't see how it's that much different than a feathered spear, and they're both not good. Old wooden bow, it's worse than the Boko bow, but honestly, out of spite, I'm gonna put it above the silver bow. The hunting bow is just a better looking Boko bow. The pot lid is technically the worst shield in the game, but I think it has better durability than the old wooden shield. Either way, they're both bad. These are all just different skins of the Traveler's Shield. I guess if I had to rank them, I'd probably put this one here, this one next, this one next, this one, and then the regular one. And then the arrow is, if you want to get technical, the arrow is like, it's invaluable because you need it to shoot arrows or shoot bows, but looks like that's it for the tier list. We've got the invaluable tier, which I think these are for the most part pretty hard to argue. These are all insanely good weapons or items that you pretty much always are going to want. We have the great tier, which are also like not quite as good, but they're like generally you're not going to pass these up if you happen to find them. We got pretty good, which are just a little bit worse, but again, most of these, if you did find one of these, you probably wouldn't pass them. Like the royal guard stuff, I trashed on them pretty hard for being really brittle, but if I found one in the depths, I'm probably not going to just leave it there. I probably would take it. I've got the okay tier. Some of this stuff is like you wouldn't pass on it, and some of it is just like take it or leave it. You don't really care either way. The not great stuff is like you can pass on it and you'll live, or it's just early game stuff that you grow out of. And then the pretty bad tier is same boat, just even worse. So yeah, I think that just about wraps it up here.